This video is kindly brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one platform to create a beautiful online presence. Hi, my name's Janelle and welcome back to Rosery Apparel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing part 2 of my top DIY gift ideas. I'm so passionate about giving handmade where possible, and hopefully the projects I'll be sharing in this video will give you some fun ideas and inspiration of some of the things you can make for your loved ones this holiday season. Let's start with these ruffled linen tea towels. Using a water erasable pen or some tailor's chalk, mark out and cut one rectangle that's approximately 40 by 50 centimeters or 16 by 20 inches, and one rectangle that's 8 by 10 centimeters or 3 by 40 inches. Take the larger of the two rectangles and fold and press the two longer edges and one of the shorter edges in by about 1 centimeter or half an inch twice. Next, take the longer rectangle and fold and press the two shorter edges and one of the longer edges in by 1 centimeter or half an inch twice, and also stitch the folded edges in place. Set your sewing machine to the longest possible setting and sew 2 rows of gathering stitches along the non-hemmed edge of the longer rectangle. This will be the ruffle of the tea towel. Gently pull on the top 2 threads to gather up the fabric until it's approximately the same size as the width of the main tea towel rectangle. And then give the ruffle a good press with your iron. With right sides together, pin the ruffle to the non-hemmed edge of the main tea towel, and then stitch it in place like this. Neaten the raw edges with an overlocker or the zigzag stitch of your sewing machine, and remove any exposed gathering stitches with a seam ripper. Lastly, give the now attached ruffle a good press with your iron. And your lovely ruffled linen tea towel is complete. Next, let me show you how to make your own shoelaces. For this project, you're going to need some 5mm heat shrink tubing, preferably one that has been pre-glued on the inside. Let me start by showing you how to make some fabric shoelaces. Start by cutting 2 rectangles that are approximately 2 by 100 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch by 40 inches. I'm cutting my rectangle out on the bias of the fabric because I'm using gingham, and cutting on the bias will just make the finished shoelaces look better, but you don't necessarily have to cut the fabric on the bias for this project. Like me, you may need to stitch multiple lengths together to get the 100 centimeter length, so start by stitching your multiple lengths of fabric together. If you did cut your fabric on the bias, stitch the 2 lengths together like this. Next, thread your 2 fabric rectangles through a bias binder maker. You should be able to pick up these from most craft stores. As you thread the fabric through, press the folded edges with your iron. Then fold and press your freshly made bias binding in half, enclosing all of the raw edges onto the inside. And then stitch the folded edge in place. Next, cut 4 2 centimeter or 4 3/4 of an inch pieces from your heat shrink tubing. Then thread the tubing onto the ends of your stitched up bias binding and use a hairdryer or a heat gun if you have one to shrink the tubing onto the ends of the fabric. As the tubing shrinks, it should tightly secure itself to the fabric. Then snip away the excess fabric, and your handmade shoelaces are complete. If you don't want to make your own bias binding, you can simply use some ribbon instead. Cut 2 100cm or 40-inch lengths of ribbon, and then fold the ends so that they can fit into the cut pieces of tubing. Then simply follow the same steps as we did for the fabric shoelaces. And your adorable satin ribbon shoelaces are complete. Now let's take a moment to talk about the sponsor of this video. This video has been very kindly sponsored by Squarespace. I've personally been using Squarespace to run the Rosery Apparel website and online store for the last 6 years, and trust me when I tell you, they make creating and running a website so stress-free and easy. Whether you want to start making and selling your own products, create a portfolio to showcase your work, write a blog, or simply create any website of any kind, Squarespace have so many beautifully designed templates to choose from, you're sure to find one that's perfect for you and your needs. Once you've selected a template, you can then customize it completely to suit your brand and style, and you can change everything from the overall layout of the website to all the fun things like the fonts and colors with just a few clicks, no knowledge or background in coding needed whatsoever. I recently created a new sewing pattern, which is what I sell on my website, and through that process I was reminded just how easy Squarespace makes adding new products and pages to your website. I'm a huge fan of their duplicate product button, as the listings of my sewing patterns are all quite similar. It saves me so much time to be able to duplicate an already existing pattern listing and then change and tweak it to suit my new pattern, and that meant that instead of fussing over my website for hours and hours, I could get back on with working on the other aspects of my business. So if you'd like to create a website of your own, then head to squarespace.com for a free trial, and then when you're ready to launch your beautiful new website, head to squarespace.com/roseryapparel for 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thanks Squarespace for sponsoring this video, and let's get back to the DIYs. Now let's make a dried flower arrangement. There's something so beautiful about dried flowers, and the best part is they last forever, and so they make such a lovely gift idea for your flower loving friends. For this gift you'll need a nice vase and an array of different dried flowers and foliage. I have a few dried banksias to make a focal point in my arrangement, and also some eucalyptus to add some lovely green tones. I also managed to find some dyed pink thistle type stems that are just so beautiful and are going to add a really interesting feature to the arrangement. Start by arranging the dried stems into the vase. I found it best to start with some of the more foliage type stems and experiment with the heights and textures of them, and then add some of the more statement focal pieces. There's really no right or wrong with this sort of thing, so just keep playing around with the layout of all the different elements until you're happy with your arrangement. Next up, let's make some hand-painted picture frames. I picked up a random selection of frames from an op shop, which is what we call thrift stores here in Australia, and they were pretty reasonably priced, and you might have a bit of luck finding some more unique frames at a thrift store as well. Start by removing the backs and the glass of the frames, and before painting it's best to put on an apron. I shared the tutorial for this pretty gingham apron in part 1 of these DIY gift ideas videos, so definitely check that video out if you'd like to make one for yourself. It's also a really good idea to cover your table with some paper or a drop sheet of some kind. First, start by painting your frames with a primer. Then once the primer coat is dry, it's time to start painting the frames the coloured paint of your choice. I'm going to be using a classic Rosery pink for my frames. You can paint the frames one block colour if you like, or alternatively take some masking tape and stick strips of it onto the dried paint frame, making sure to space the strips of tape out evenly over the entire front of the frame like this. Then take a contrasting paint colour and paint the exposed areas of the frame. Depending on the type of paint you're using, you may need to do a couple of coats. Once the contrasting paint is dry, remove the masking tape to reveal a fun stripe design. Another fun way to paint the frames is to stick the masking tape onto two opposite corners of the frame and then paint only half of the frame in the contrasting paint. These are some super simple but effective ideas that won't take away from the actual artwork or photos in the frames, but obviously there are hundreds of other ways you can paint your frames. So yeah, get creative, as again, there's no right or wrong when it comes to this DIY. And lastly, who doesn't like to receive some handmade baked goods as a gift? So let me show you how to make my favourite festive biscuits, Speculaas. For this recipe, you will need the following ingredients. In a large bowl, place the butter, flour, sugar, and baking powder. Then mix together with a hand mixer or food processor until your mixture looks a little bit like breadcrumbs, like this. Then add about 1 tablespoon of water and mix again until your mixture starts to clump together to form a dough. Roll your dough out with a rolling pin and use the bottom of a decorative glass to print the dough. Then, using a cookie cutter, cut your imprinted dough into a biscuit shape. Again, I found a few different glasses at the thrift store to add a bit of variety, and I just love how the glasses add a really kind of festive look so easily and also make the biscuits look very impressive. Once you've imprinted and cut all of your biscuits, place them into your fridge for at least an hour or preferably overnight to help them keep their shape when baking. Then place them into a 170 degrees Celsius or 338 degrees Fahrenheit oven and bake for about 20 minutes or until golden. To go along with this gift idea, I've made some free downloadable tags that you can find a link to in the description of this video. Once you've printed the tags, just simply cut them out and then hole punch the top of the tag and tie it onto a jar of your Speculaas biscuits to create a really lovely gift. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that it's given you some fun DIY gift ideas to try. If you do have a go at any of the projects I've shared in this video, then I would love to see them, so be sure to tag me at Rosery Apparel when you share your photos on Instagram. I shared part 1 of this series on my channel a few days ago, and I also shared some in December last year, so I'll leave those linked down in the description below if you need even more DIY gift ideas to try. And if you did enjoy this video, then make sure you subscribe to this channel for more sewing and DIY videos like this one. Have a lovely day and thanks for watching!